Welcome to the Father on Purpose podcast, featuring author and ministry leader Kent Evans and business executive and military veteran Lawson Brown. This is a show for you, Dad. You want to be a godly and intentional father. Unfortunately, you've turned to these two knuckleheads for help. Let us know how that works out for you. Before we begin, remember this: you are not a father on accident. So go be a father on purpose. Please welcome your hosts, Kent and Lawson.
Hey, Dad, you ever try to get something across to your kids, but you find it difficult? Like in your head, it's as clear as like the hand in front of your face. But getting that idea across to your kids, something goes wrong. And they don't hear it right. You don't say it right. And you feel kind of like, I think of the dad in the movie Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, where he's like, there's like a fish and it's in the sea. And he keeps trying to figure out. And his son finally says to him in the movie, Dad, I don't understand fishing metaphors. It's a hilarious movie. If you've never seen Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, pause this, go watch that movie. See you in 2 hours. What a movie. One of the things that can help us in this regard are metaphors. Metaphors. And what's a metaphor? Okay, that's an old joke. Okay, just kidding. Remember, today's episode is brought to you by Range Leather. If you're looking for not a metaphorical product, but an actual product, a real bona fide cool product, go to rangeleather.com. Use the code MJ15 and you'll get 15% off your next order. We love the folks at Range Leather. They make amazing products. Go check them out. Right now, order something and use the code MJ15. That tells their owner, Kyle Koster, that his sponsorship of this podcast is worth continuing. So use the code. Please help us keep the lights on around here at Father on Purpose. Go to rangeleather.com. Lawson, I'm pumped about today's topic. How about you?
Yeah, me too. When you first sent it, I thought, ooh, that's interesting. And since then, we've kind of blown it out a little bit. Yeah.
Interesting. Air quote,
interesting.
I bet Kent's idea has a great personality.
It's good, right. No, man, it's good. It's like, it's easy. It helps you to explain things. A good analogy, a good metaphor, helps connect the dots. Depending on the age of your kids, some of these will be more applicable than others, but yeah, dude, let's get into it.
Well, and no joke, right? Every brilliant idea started with God, and so is the use of metaphors, right? You look through the Bible and you see, 100. It's a lot. There's a bunch. The Good Shepherd. Jesus says, "I'm the Good Shepherd." That would have meant a lot to people in the first century who understood, because many of them were shepherds, or like their brother-in-law was a shepherd. Like they knew shepherds and they understood that. That's from John 10. The vine and the branches. I'm the vine. You are the branches. John 15. The light of the world. You are the light of the world. A town built on a hill cannot be hidden. Jesus wants us to shine our light. The bread of life, the mustard seed, the rock, the gate, the sower, the lost sheep. It goes on and on. There's so many metaphors that Jesus used in the New Testament in particular to teach and to make a point. And it's not just because metaphors are handy or because they're memorable, though they are. It is because Jesus knows how our brains are wired, and we think in terms of pictures and 3D images and things that we can see and know, and we can map concepts from one thing to the other. And that mapping, that's the reason Jesus used so many metaphors, is because he created our brains, so he knows how to like hack them and get them to work the best. The only thing you got to put as an asterisk whenever you're talking about metaphors is, obviously, every metaphor does break down at some point. Like, they're not perfect, drawn out to the very, very extended idea. But I would say...
It's like a bridge that goes 3/4 of the way over a river.
Right. Yeah. And in most cases, it makes a lot of sense. Yeah. I did not know. Would you care to explain that one to me? Seriously. I don't know what you meant.
It's a metaphor. Like, it doesn't make it all the way. It doesn't connect all the way.
Actually, that's fantastic. Oh, my goodness. No, honestly, I just thought it's so natural for me to think in terms of metaphors. I didn't even think that you were using one. That's Way to go, Lawson. You stumped the Kent.
Right.
You stumped Kent today.
I got you off track.
No. Well, to get me off track, you're making a violent assumption, and that is that there was a track I was on to begin with. So I'm a dad of 5 boys. Lawson's a dad of 2 daughters. And my oldest son is 25. My youngest is 9. And so sometimes, I've been a dad for 25 years. And often I've had to use a metaphor to get a point across because my language fails me or because I just wanted it to be more memorable. And some of these are taken straight out of scripture. But there's a few that I've used as a dad. And I've wanted to do this episode for like a year. We just keep, putting other ideas in the queue. And we finally got here because I'm super excited about this for 2 reasons. One, I want to share with you 4 or 5 metaphors that I've used as a dad that have helped me a lot. And you'll see in which areas some of these as we go through them. But secondly, my hunch is for the thousands of dads who listen to this podcast, you have metaphors that you've used as well. And I want you to send those to us. We'll do like a follow-up episode with your metaphors. You can do them one of 2 ways. Either email us. You can just use info@manhoodjourney.org. That's info at manhoodjourney.org. Send us your metaphor idea that you have used. Or go to manhoodjourney.org/podcast and hit the button and record it. And tell us the metaphor that you've used with your sons or your daughters. And what would be hilarious is if you used one that just completely broke down and they spun it back on you, because my kids have done that to me as well. But let me start with one that is, I think, very handy and will be uniquely applicable, especially for those of you who tend to listen to the podcast while you're driving down the road. We're all familiar with highways that have on the side of the highway, right as you get toward the yellow line, there's the concrete little divots cut out that I think are called rumble strips. And it's the idea that as your tire hangs over the edge of the line, you start to feel the vibration and you hear a pretty loud noise called rumble strips that help you know, hey man, you're drifting out of your lane. You're moving too far, to the right or to the left on the highway. And so you hear the rumble strips. I have frequently used that as a metaphor to help my kids understand that the concept behind stopping a progression toward danger before you're all the way into the ditch or off of the cliff. So sometimes it goes like this. My son will be in a pattern that's an unhealthy pattern. Maybe they're being really disrespectful to their mom for a week or 2 on end, or maybe they're not getting their work done. Maybe they're not being honest. And I'll go to them and I'll go, hey man, I'm observing a pattern in your life and it's like rumble strips on a highway. And I can hear and I can feel the vibration of your behavior. Can you hear it? Can you feel it? Like, are we on the same page where you go, man, I'm headed toward danger and I better stop? Because let me tell you what happens on the other side of these rumble strips. You crash and you crash into me and you crash into consequences. You crash into a severely restricted set of permissions and benefits to your life. And you're going to crash, man. If you keep going, you're going to crash. Now, those rumble strips are meant to wake you up, alert you, and help you to course correct. So that's what Dad's here doing. I'm waving the flag. I'm noticing the rumble strips, and I want to help you course correct. And I bet, Lawson, whether you used rumble strips as a metaphor or not, you've had to have those conversations with your daughters over time.
Yeah, and in that case, in the metaphor, you, the dad, are acting as the rumble strip. Like, are you alerting? Like, you hear them, you see them, and you're calling attention to it to your kid. Is that the case, or are you being
I think it's
the dad
both.
as the rumble strip?
Yeah, I think there's both. So for example, and what I mean by both is sometimes I'm the rumble strip. I'm the one kind of making the noise and making the vibration, so to speak, and going, hey, do you see this?
Or you could be like, you know what they're doing? They're telling you you're on the rumble strip. Like you're observing the teacher or, someone in their relationship circle that's doing it.
Yeah. Or sometimes life is giving them the feedback that a rumble strip would give you, but they're not noticing it. Yeah. So for example, there's a ton of tension between them and their mom. And every morning they wake up feeling like they're kind of, behind the 8 ball. And you're like, yeah, it's because you are. You are behind the 8 ball. And here's why. You've been disrespectful 5 days in a row, or you've been lying, or you've not been accountable. So let's talk about, whether that. So sometimes life is delivering them the kind of feedback that a rumble strip would deliver. They're just not noticing it. There's a great verse here, by the way. And I want to try best I can to tie each one of these metaphors to either a verse or several verses in Scripture. One of which that goes with the rumble strip is Proverbs 22, verse 3. It says this: the prudent sees danger, or in some cases it might say the wise sees danger and hides himself, but the simple go on and suffer for it. Yeah, it's like you got to the rumble strips and you said, crash. To heck with it. I'm gonna keep going, and on you went. That's really common with kids is they'll see the rumble strip, feel the rumble strip, but just press on for various reasons.
Yeah, another role of the dad is the guardrail. You go beyond the rumble strip, and there's this immovable object called dad that says, yeah, I'm here to protect you because I don't want you to careen off this road over the cliff, which is where you were headed. The rumble strips were giving you the alert. Fortunately for us both, I'm here and I got you. It probably hurt. Did you feel that when you hit that guardrail because dad doesn't move? That's been rare in my life, but it has definitely happened a few times. And I have also had like another way of looking at this as just a guy, as a dad, is near the end of last year, I could feel myself getting kind of not sick, but like I could feel it coming on. And I was just run down. The rumble strips in my life where I was doing too much. I was traveling too much. I wasn't taking care of myself. I wasn't getting good sleep, and just kind of burning the candle at both ends. That was the rumble strip saying, you're overdoing it. You need to course correct. You need to pay attention to what life is telling you and pay attention and get back on the smooth, clear lane that is health and taking care of yourself and prioritizing, sleep and getting things done that are healthy and not overdoing it. So yeah, I love the rumble strip. That would be, in a book, that would be maybe chapter 2, because I think rumble strips, if we're alert and paying attention, we can see them and hear them and feel them from people in our lives, our guys group, our wife, our buddies, that are there to say, hey, are you noticing? Kind of like your example with the kids. But I've had guys in my life, Michael, Pete, Bo, you, others in my life who have said something to me, about it doesn't look like you're on the path that you described you wanting to be on. That's right. Here's what I'm seeing. Here's what I'm thinking. Absolutely. Is that the case? And it makes you think.
Absolutely. So there's rumble strips, guardrails, that kind of thing. And the beauty of those metaphors is, if your kid's any age at all, they've been in a car, they can connect the dots. Oh yeah, I remember that. Or if you're in the car and you get on the rumble strips, sometimes I'll get on them on purpose just to make the point. Hey guys, you hear that? That's what I'm talking about. So that I drive it home. It goes deep down. There's a companion metaphor that I've used a lot that's really close. It's different, but it's similar in some ways. So I want to address that one next, and I rearranged it in our show notes, Lawson, in real time. This is the one called the ledge, or the cliff, or as who's the dad in Nemo? Marlin, as Marlin said, the drop off. Every time I hear the phrase drop off, I go, the drop off? Why don't we just fry them up now and serve them with chips? Like that's in the movie Finding Nemo. But it's the idea that there is a dangerous place like the ledge or a cliff with no guardrail, no fence. My son Alex and his wife went to Zion National Park a couple years ago, and they went up Angel's Landing, which ought to be called like hell's earthly place. Like there's nothing angelic about it, because it's like you can die. Like it's this super skinny rock at the top of Zion National Park, and then on the side it's 1,000-foot cliffs, and a couple wrong steps and you're gone forever. It's got like this little chain link. Go look it up. But like it's got this little chain link guard that you can hold on to that looks like the most useless thing in the world. But you got to be sure-footed, and you're really, really close. Like you're asking for trouble. Now it's a thrill seekers kind of place. But here's the thing: for the believer, when it comes to danger, sin, foolishness,
temptation,
greed, lust, pride, anger, we should not be going right up to the edge of the ledge. So what I will often ask my boys is, I'll be like, hey man, do you sense this ledge in your life? It might be a relationship. It might be a behavior pattern. And I'll say, how close do you think you should get to that ledge? And there's only one correct answer: as far away as possible. Like you should put as much distance between you and that ledge as possible. So for example, in Proverbs chapter 5, we are explaining, Solomon's explaining to his sons one of the several chapters in Proverbs that's almost exclusively devoted to sexual temptation. Almost exclusively. And in verse 7, Solomon says, "And now, O sons, listen to me, and do not depart from the words of my mouth. Keep your way far from her." So we go back, and who are we talking about? For the lips of a forbidden woman, verse 3, drip honey, and her speech is smoother than oil, but in the end she's bitter as wormwood. Then he goes on to talk about drink water from your own cistern. In other words, if you're married, be faithful to your one wife. Why should you be intoxicated, my son, with a forbidden woman? Verse 20. What's interesting is, in other parts of Proverbs, he's talking about the same exact topic. He says, look, I noticed among the naive, this stupid guy, this stupid, foolish man, he walked by the house of the forbidden woman. He went right to her door, and voila, she comes out and bids him to come in, and then he goes like an ox led to the slaughter, like a bird caught in a nest. Well, what did he do? He went way too close to the ledge, right? So we can look at Proverbs, we can think about the story of David in the Old Testament overlooking literally a ledge of his house that was above Bathsheba's house that he could see her clearly at. And so I've used the metaphor of the ledge to basically say, look, man, sometimes you're walking through the forest and there's a ledge all of a sudden. You didn't know it. There was a lot of brush. There was trees. It's not your fault exactly, but whoops, there you are right on the edge. However, more often than not, way more likely is you see the ledge. It's, 100 feet away, but it's got something attractive on it or near it. And you think, yeah, I can do it. I can go right by the edge.
Right.
And I've just talked to my boys often about this ledge. And it might be different for them in a season. That the ledge might be the temptation to lie. The ledge might be the temptation to have lust or do the forbidden woman thing as they hit their teenage or puberty years. The ledge might be different for your son or your daughter, but we want to help our kids understand ledges are not to be trifled with. And the only safe place is far away from them.
Yeah. And you can put things in your life that help you with that. If you've experienced where the ledge is, you can warn other people. If you know you have something in your life that's going to be a temptation, build in some guardrails to help you, in a good way. You can, put like web protection services on your iPad. If you know you have a problem going to sites that you shouldn't be going to, well, bring in an accountability partner, load that software. It just won't let you do it. or if it does, or if you do, it sends automatic alerts, to your buddy and your wife. That'll stop you. That'll keep you from going even near that ledge.
Yeah, that's right.
You reminded me, dude, that this, I hope I won't drag this story out, but it's so funny. I was on a motorcycle trip with Pete once, a long time ago in Utah, and we were in the middle of nowhere in the desert. It's a beautiful Red Rock Canyon desert, and it was just this long winding road, getting ready to be sunset, so we were trying to make our way to this campsite that we knew of. And the road was curving left and right, kind of going gently down. And then there was a sign that said, full stop, hard right ahead. And then like shortly after, slow down. And then another sign that said, full stop, hard right turn. Another sign.
Wow.
Yeah.
No way.
Another sign and another sign. I'm not kidding. I bet you there were 15 signs in 3 miles saying, full stop, hard right ahead, slow down, slow down, slow down. We got there, and sure enough, there was the road literally, there was a stop sign, and then right on the other side was an actual cliff of the side of a mountain. So if you didn't stop, you ran straight into this cliff. So,
wow.
And then, so we got there, we looked over to the left, there was the campsite, a little hotel. We checked in the hotel, we got our room. We're sitting out on this little balcony overlooking a beautiful river. It was awesome. And we heard in the distance a huge, like a 18-wheeler truck sliding. The trailer comes around sideways. And we just started laughing like, how did you not know there were 3 miles worth of 15 signs saying full stop, hard right,
what did you think those meant?
Like, how did you think it didn't apply to you? But that, how many times in my life has someone said, hey, dude, full stop ahead, hard right, slow down. And I just keep on driving. And next thing you know, bam, you hit or go right off in your, analogy here, the ledge. Oh my God, we laughed so hard. Like, how did that truck driver not see?
I bet he was scared to death, man.
And you probably, we wanted to walk over there and go, dude, now that you've gotten out of your truck and you're bent over, holding your hands on your knees out of fear. Right. How did you miss all that? All those notices. Wow. God puts over and over and over these signs in our life. And sometimes we just need somebody else to say, hey, I want to be with you on this journey to keep you from flying off of that ledge.
That's right. And like you, often we've got friends in our lives, or the Holy Spirit, or our wives, or, our boss, and they're telling us, they are those signs. And they're like, hey man, this is not a good, you're headed in the wrong direction. But our pride, our ego, whatever, just we keep going. So rumble strips is one, the ledge is the second. The third is one that I've often referred to as relational stew. Relational stew. So think of like your favorite, chili, your favorite stew, your favorite soup that has a bunch of ingredients in it. And I've used this metaphor like this. When my boys either were at each other, they were having trouble with each other, or they were having trouble with another friend or a teacher or someone in their life, a coach, I would say, hey, listen, relationships are kind of like a big pot of stew that's sitting in the middle of a table, and you're on one side and this other person is on the other side. And both of you get to contribute ingredients to the stew. He or she's putting in a little bit of this, a little bit of that. You're putting in a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And in essence, your relationship becomes this two-part concoction that both of you are throwing ingredients into. Now, the other person might be throwing in, dirt and arsenic and, bad tasting ingredients. And so your relationship is tainted, spoiled, difficult to swallow, hard to choke down. This is a difficult relationship. However, what is your job as a believer? Put the right ingredients into the stew. you can't control, and this is true. I was texting with one of our podcast listeners or emailing. I should say he's a Mountain Monday subscriber. If you're not a Mountain Monday subscriber, go check it out. Weekly newsletter for dads. He's a Mountain Monday subscriber, and he had emailed me about a recent Mountain Monday saying, yeah, no doubt, couldn't agree more. And he has a 1-year-old, and he said, yeah, I'm just now learning how to not, that I don't have as much control over this 1-year-old as I thought. And I'm like, bro, wait till that kid's 14 or 18. Like
Right.
I didn't want to tell him out loud, but if he's listening, yeah. So we have this illusion of control, or we have this illusion that we can make the relationship really great, very flavorful, very tasty, very pleasing. No, actually, you can't.
You can do your part.
You can put the right ingredients in the stew, but the stew still may not have a great flavor. However, here's what you're going to be accountable for in the end. What ingredients you put in, not the flavor of the stew. Because it's not your job. In fact, and here's the one example I could use to kind of back me up on this biblically, right? Jesus put in only the ingredients of perfection, love, forgiveness, acceptance, truth, honesty. Jesus did not put one ingredient into the relational stew with us, the disciples, the Pharisees, anybody, that was an evil or sinful ingredient. Never. Yet, those people, his own people, turned on him. They wanted Barabbas instead of Jesus to be freed. They said, crucify him, crucify him. We have no king but Caesar. Those people turned on him. His own 11 all kind of flaked out for a while and ran. Peter denied him. Judas betrayed him. So there are going to be relationships that the flavor of that relationship, number one, you can't control the whole flavor. And number two, it never gets really good. It could be an in-law. It could be a friend. It could be a boss. It could be a person who works for you. And you just kind of tolerate this not super tasty. Last week, my wife has fixed thousands and thousands of meals. Literally thousands of meals. And we all laugh about one meal she fixed several years ago from, a TV chef type person. And I don't know if we got it wrong or if it's just not our cup of tea, but we all laugh about, that was the one meal we sat down to, we all took a bite, and we all had that really weird look where we're like, is it as bad as we all think it is? Like, it was so bad. Even April goes, oh, heck no, I'm not eating this. And so it was the only time I can remember. And we've been married almost 30 years. I don't know how many meals per day. It's thousands of meals. And there's this one where we're like, nah, we're not eating this. And we all threw it away. I don't know if we ordered pizza or what we did one time. So there are times when, despite your best efforts, the relational stew it just never gets really flavorful.
Mm-hmm. You also made me think like you've got to be careful what you're putting in. Any ingredient isn't necessarily good. Colossians, here, go with me on this and then tell me what you think. Colossians 3:13 through 14. Bear with each other and forgive one another if any of you has a grievance against someone. Forgive as the Lord forgave you. And over all these virtues, put on love, which binds them all together in perfect unity. It's a binder. Love is that binder. Like if you put certain ingredients in, it binds that stew together. It binds that chili, and so that is love. Above all these virtues, put on love. It's like, and you can make a soup that tastes really good, but it's full of just processed crap. It's full of, like, the best case is, like you said, with what Jesus was doing, where he was putting into relationships only the pure, organic, grass-fed, grass-finished. It was the purest of ingredients because it was coming from him. Yeah. We got to be careful too what we're putting in relationships. Not too much not too much salt, or too much hot sauce, or whatever it may be. One particular spice may make a meal taste fantastic, but too much of it, or like if you are throwing in, what's that? One of my favorite Thanksgiving meals is squash casserole, and squash is great for you. Cream, good fat, other things that Audrey's sister Stacy puts in, but on top, it's Cheez-Its. And so tastes great, not good for you. And I just eat half the pan before anybody gets to it. I go, I dive straight for it. So my point is, be mindful of the ingredients that you're responsible for.
That's right.
Putting into that. And in your relationships, what you see others throw in there as well, be mindful of. I've got a friend, Jeff, who is, I'm drawing a blank. It's an intestinal thing. And he is like, seriously, gluten gives him, like, if he tastes it, within minutes, he's got a reaction.
Yeah.
I've never seen anything this strong.
Yeah.
And so he is on like high alert when he orders something. He talks to the person. He's like, but it's not just, is it on this meal? It's, is it in the grease that you fry the other fries? Right. Like he's got to backtrack because he's so careful with what goes in because he knows it's going to hurt him. And we need to have that same kind of mindset.
One of my very favorite bosses I've ever had is a guy named Frank Austin. And Frank and I have been friends for 25 years. And he was, I'm not laughing at his allergy. I'm laughing at how he administered the communication around his allergy. But he had a hyper aversion to dairy of any kind, milk, butter, you name it. And when you would go to dinner with him, it's like you literally could go and like catch up on an episode from your favorite TV show while he explained to the waiter or waitress how his allergy needed to be accounted for. Hi, listen, I'd like to get the baked potato, but now listen, what's your name again? Frank? Frank, listen, Frank. I am allergic to dairy. Now, what I mean by that, and here we go. It was like, and it went on and on and on.
So you're like, okay, here we go. I'm gonna go to the bathroom.
But it was actually his way of having a lot of fun with it. Like we would laugh, we cut up. He was joking for the most part, but he was trying to make a point that he didn't want any dairy. It became very obvious. Before we hop off this, to your point, some of us only have like 2 ingredients. Like the only thing we can add to a relationship is hot sauce. I'm speaking from, not for me, but this is like for a friend. I'm actually talking about a friend of mine. Like
when I show up in the kitchen and Audrey and Olivia are in there doing their thing, they're like, what are you doing? You have no business. Get out of here.
No business. I'm going to talk about someone who's a friend of mine. His name sounds like Schment Schmevens. He's not me. He's a friend of mine. It's not Kent at all. But I have been notorious. In fact, this very day, I sent an email to a guy who made a huge mistake. He asked me for my opinion. So I gave it to him. About 11 paragraphs of my opinion. No, it wasn't hateful, but it was just like, okay, here's what I think. You asked what I think. Here's what I think. Now I've got to be careful because I learned, I like conflict. I enjoy it. Actually, I like a good argument. I enjoy debate. I enjoy differences of opinions.
Yeah.
I like all that. A lot of people don't. I also am sarcastic and sometimes prone to anger and a sharp mouth. And that's how I survived being as short as I am in like the mean streets of Shively, Kentucky. So that's how I survived growing up, was using my mouth. I once talked myself completely out of a beating. No joke. This guy came to the park after my soccer practice with the express intent of beating me up, and I talked to him for 45 minutes until I had worn him down with my mouth. And so, knowing that, some of us, the only ingredient we ever pour into a relationship is hot sauce. Mm-hmm. For example, I'll just use that as an example because it's my story. We come in with an attitude. We come in with a sharp tongue. Like Proverbs 15:1 says, a gentle answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger.
Right.
Man, I've been guilty of that second half of that so many times where the ingredient I'm adding to the relationship is aggression. And then I'm like, oh, how come they're so bent out of shape? I gaslight somebody and get them all mad at me. And then I'm like, why are you so angry? And I've done that, more times than I can commit. So often we find ourselves eating relational stew. And here's the weird thing, to extend the metaphor. big long table, 10 pots of stew, okay? And you are on one side, and your 10 closest friends or kids or wife or workers are on the other side. And you taste every pot, and you go, golly, all these all taste like they have too much hot sauce. Guess why? It's not because you accidentally got 10 people who, they all went shopping for hot sauce. No, it's you, man. It's you. And you keep putting, and some people are the opposite. I had a friend one time who said, gosh, Kent, you sure are direct. And I said, yeah, and you sure are indirect and unclear. Now what do we do? Oh, wow. And it was like, and he was on the other side. All he brought to relationships was like fat, like emulsifiers, like just never got to the point. It's just always just, oh, it's so nice and aren't we friendly? But nothing ever got done. And so he and I were like literally oil and water in many ways. And we both had to learn from one another. So just, you made me think of that, Lawson. Some dads have like 2 ingredients. I literally have a friend, no kidding, his name's Mark. He's from Louisiana, and we'll be at events together. He carries hot sauce in a belt holder on his belt. I'm not joking at all.
I like him.
It's his favorite hot sauce. He likes it. He takes it with him wherever he goes. That is a great picture. Some of us, all we carry around is hot sauce in our relationships. And we wonder why all of our stew tastes so doggone spicy. Okay. Fourth metaphor. And this is going to come in super handy if you have teenage kids. Okay. It's relevant for younger kids, but it's really handy if you have teenage kids. One time, one of my boys was out on the deck with my wife, and they were having a discussion that turned into, this back and forth, pretty aggressive. They weren't screaming or throwing objects at each other, but nobody was really listening or catching the point of the other person. There was just a lot of back and forth. I felt like I was at the U.S. Open, watching like Pete Sampras and whoever. There's like man, Roger Federer, like the balls are flying back and forth. And both people have a racket and they're whack, whack, whack. And I say something and you say something and I say something. And I realized, you know what one of them needs to do? One of them needs to be like a baseball catcher and just receive the pitch. Catch it, glove it, pull it out, and gently toss it back. No baseball catcher throws the ball back at 97 miles an hour. Why? Because they're not trying to strike out the pitcher. They're just trying to get him the ball back. But it's going to come back to the catcher at 97 miles an hour, right? Or in the dirt.
Right. Yeah.
So I told my son, I asked my wife, I said, April, can you go inside for a second? And I said, hey, to my son, listen, man, you're like a tennis player and you need to be like a baseball catcher. So the metaphor is baseball catcher. They've all seen baseball. Yeah. They've all seen a game of baseball on television, or they've gone to the games live, or they've played the game of baseball. What does the baseball catcher do? He receives the ball. What if it's in the dirt? He receives the ball. What if it's hard and high? He receives the ball. What if it's a curveball designed to confuse and deflect and mislead people? He receives the ball. What is his job? Actually, I used to be a baseball umpire. His job is to protect the umpire, but his job is to catch the ball. And then gently and under a measured pace, get it back to the pitcher and not overthrow the pitcher, not chuck it into the outfield, not throw it back to the pitcher in the dirt. He is a receiver. And so what I've told my teenage boys often is, listen, man, you're acting like a fool because you're just shoving it back and shoving it back and shoving it back. Be a baseball catcher. Wisdom is in the receiving. James 1:19. My dear brothers, take note of this. Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to become angry. Or Proverbs 18:13. To answer before listening, that is folly and shame. And often I can get my sons to like slow down, receive the ball, and then I can use the metaphor. This is the nuance to the metaphor that for me has been really handy. Every now and then, as perfect as my wife is, she will say something that has a little bit of an edge to it. She's making a point, or she might be a little angry or frustrated, or it's the 27th time she's said it to that same person in the last hour, and she's kind of had it. So I'll occasionally tell my boys, hey, man, what does the catcher do when the ball's in the dirt? Does he stop the ball and then take off his mask and go, hey, pitcher, you stupid pitcher, throw it better next time? No. His job is to receive the ball, even if the ball is not well delivered. And that is a nuance to this metaphor that can help us with our teenage kids to go, look, man, I don't care how your mom talks to you. Okay? That's her deal. You are going to catch, receive, listen, and be respectful. And if she throws you 10 balls in the dirt in a row, you're going to stop all 10. Got me? Because what am I doing, man? What am I doing with young men especially? Preparing them to be husbands. And even if April's coming at me with some aggression, or she's had a long day, or she's tired or sick or doesn't feel well or whatever, my job is to love her like Christ loved the church, not just when her pitches are nice and tender delivered over the middle of the plate. And so for me, especially with boys, we're training them to be future husbands. And one of the things they got to learn how to do is not react and not give it back like they got it.
Man, that is so good. I think these 4 metaphors, I feel like we could continue, because this really helps tell the story, and it helps like align our thinking in a way that visualize, that I can now visualize, like talking to my kids, talking to my coworkers, talking to myself, like that one with the ledge really hit home. And I hope that today, we've given these guys something to think about on your ride home, on your jog, while you're doing the lawn, whatever. It is really interesting how we as dads can reflect the style and approach that Jesus took when he was building relationships with others. When he was explaining things, he used story, he used metaphors, because he knows how our brain works. We know how our children work. Some kids are going to gravitate and understand a metaphor in one way, others another. And depending on their age, their circumstance, I think any of these 4 can be repurposed multiple times when we're dealing with a child that is undergoing some sort of stress, or maybe an exciting opportunity, and bring them into this thought process by using one of these 4 metaphors: rumble strips, the ledge or the cliff, this relational stew, man, that is rich. And then the baseball catcher. Just receive what's coming at you. Proverbs 18:13. I'll end here. It says to answer before listening. That is folly and shame. That's that tennis, that tennis metaphor. Not even, you're staring at the ball only to hit it back, not at all to receive it. So these are fantastic. I hope you guys have gotten a lot out of this. And Kent and I will see you next week on Father on Purpose.
Hey, Dad, thank you for listening to today's show. If you found this episode helpful, remember, you can get all the content and show notes at manhoodjourney.org/podcast. And if you really liked it, please consider doing 3 things. Number 1, share this podcast with someone. You can hit the share button in your app, wherever you listen to podcasts, or just call the person up and tell them to listen in.
We're sorry, your call cannot be completed as dialed.
Number 2, subscribe to this podcast so you get episodes automatically. That helps us as well to help dads find the show. You can do that through your favorite listening app, whatever that is. And finally, review this podcast. Leave us a review, good or bad, wherever you listen. Those reviews also help other dads find the show. You can always learn more about what we're up to at manhoodjourney.org or fatheronpurpose.org. We will see you next week.